Welcome to the 8th video in the Just In Case mini-series that's sponsored by Quality in Quality, an OD consultancy firm based in Oxford, United Kingdom. My name is Mayan Chung Judge, and I'm the director of the firm. And this mini-series is called Just In Case. Just in case you don't know about something, just in case you need to be reminded of something, just in case you like to review the story behind a piece of history, and just in case you want to know a topic better. And today we again joined by Judith Katz and Fred Miller, who are both Organization Development Network Lifetime Achievement Award recipients. And they play a significant role in doing pioneer, transformative, and groundbreaking work within OD around diversity, inclusion, equality, and equity. And they very kindly have agreed to record a second video for us to explain their thinking and insights about how do we actually take an opportunity like this to do continuous transformation, and what the role that we as OD practitioners and leaders have during this time. Before I turn the time to them, I want to congratulate both of them, Fred and Judith, because your work has been included in the African American History and Culture Museum site in a program called Let's Talk About Race. The link of that will appear at the end of the video. May I encourage all of you audience to visit that link and read about the impressive writing about what's Talk About Race. Thank you for making that huge contribution. So we are very privileged to have you use your time to share your wisdom with us again. So Judith and Fred, over to you.
First, we want to thank Mian for inviting us to be a part of this. It's quite an honor to be part of an incredible process as we all can learn and grow together. And in these times and these challenges in front of us, being smarter tomorrow than you were yesterday is critical as we collectively try to make the world a better place. I'm Fred Miller. I'm with the Kaleel Jamison Consulting Group, a management consulting firm that uses organization development technology to bring about culture change. Talking about culture change, I also want to acknowledge that there are many people in the world trying to bring about change. I want to acknowledge the people who we want to acknowledge, the people who are on this video, seeing this video, and we want to acknowledge all the people around the world, some who are in the streets trying to bring about change. It takes many, many, many people doing many different things. We all don't need to do the same thing to bring about change, especially a change as large as we're talking about. We need people in the courthouse, we need people who are elected officials, we need people in various jobs, and we need people in the street. All that together is what's necessary to bring about a change that is as large and significant as we are needing as human beings to make this world a better place for all. So thank you, and send out energy and appreciation for all of those who are working on making this a better world. Where our consulting firm is located in upstate New York, Troy, New York, right outside of Albany, about 3.5-hour drive above New York City. And we've worked with many, many corporations, but also with communities in our process. And Judith.
Thanks, Fred. And I just want to echo, I'm Judith Katz with Kaleel Jamison Consulting Group. We are, I think, the oldest OD and culture change firm focused on diversity and inclusion and culture change. It's been around since 1970 when Kaleel Jamison started our firm. And I, in many ways, feel like what's happening in the world right now, particularly around racism issues in the United States, has been the core of our work and kind of founding. So creating that better world for people, for all people and organizations is a fundamental part of what we've been, I think, put on this earth to do in many, many ways. And the one thing I would just want to give my voice to what's happening in terms of the United States around George Floyd's murder and the reaction to that, and as well as other murders of African-American men and women. The one thing I heard that gives me hope, and besides the fact that people are outraged about it and reacting to it, is that we really have a moment and a time for a possibility of transformation. somebody talked about we need structural change and we need to build a new America. And I think that really speaks to also the opportunity and the challenge that we're in around the pandemic as well. So in many ways, I think this is a very important moment in our life's world's history. And I think not only in terms of people of color and Black and brown people, but our relationship to one another. And I'm hopeful that perhaps we can make some progress around that. So what we want to talk about today is in many ways an extension of that. And, we talked about in our previous video about how the pandemic has exposed a lot of fault lines, how the new normal is quite different than what was here before, that the new normal is quite different than what was here before. We have a real opportunity for transformation in this new normal. And right now we need inclusion more than ever. And so what we want to talk about today is what are the actions we can take as OD practitioners? What have been kind of the state that we've come from? How's the new normal has impacted that? And what does transformation look like? And so thank you for joining us. And at some point, we'd love to hear your points of view as well on this.
An opportunity for transformation. That's what we have. It's probably always there at every point in time, every moment. The question is, do we take advantage of the opportunity or do we waste the opportunity? Humankind needs to continue to move towards better lives, better experience, a better world. And this is one of those opportunities to move in that direction. One of many people have said it now, I'm not sure who originally said it, but never waste a crisis. And so we have a crisis, and we can have the crisis and go back to the way that things are. Fantasy, you never go back. Or we can have a crisis and use it as a springboard to go forward. And that's where we're betting. That's what we want. That's what we need. This is a springboard. This is an opportunity to really take a leap forward around some of the trends that have already started. But we're very, very small and separated and isolated, and bring those trends that are going to help us be better as human beings, interact with one another to the forefront, and use that springboard to capitalize on those, to bring greater emphasis to them and greater energy to those changes so that we can create this better world that we so desperately need. So let's not waste this crisis. And we have to keep alive, very alive, inclusion, equity, and diversity. It's critical. How do you do it not? How do you not have that? How do we have a world without that? How do we have a world of human beings that are diverse and not have diversity be a primary part of what we have to give and we capitalize on and we have as an advantage to us, not a disadvantage? How do we not have inclusion? What does it mean? Leave some people out? We've done that so well. And how has that helped us? Well, we look at where we are. How all that brilliance we've left behind or underutilized or killed in the process. So how do we get the brilliance that we need? The brilliance is in the collective. It's not in one group. It's not in one individual. It's us together. Together is stronger than apart. We know that. We know that. It's like, kindergarten 101. And yet we don't live and interact like that's true on a day-to-day basis. We act like we can leave some people behind and we're going to be okay. So there's a lot on this particular slide. I'm going to talk through some of it and then Judith will add some more to it. But the current state, if you don't know where you are, it's pretty hard to address that and to move to where you want to go. So it's important to understand where we are. People feel unsafe. That was all before the pandemic. People felt unsafe in organizations. Can I speak up? Can I be myself? Can I bring my full self to the job? Most of those answers were no, no, and no. Voices unheard. Brilliance left unheard in our organizations. How do we get those voices? Not working in a way that people feel they can do their best work. Not working in a way that people can do their best work. That sub-optimizing people, ignoring people, leaving people out of the equation. Mistrust. If I'm not seeing you, I can't trust you if I'm a leader. If I hear somebody speak something, I'm not sure they're speaking their truth. I might think they're manipulating me or telling me something that's not true. Evaluating people only on results and not how they get the results. So we got to climb to the top of the mountain, and we don't care how many dead bodies are along the side or how many wounded people are along the side of the road. As long as we got the results, I got my results, I got my numbers, I have delivered to the company, the organization, to the community what was asked of me, and I did it. Too bad that it cost relationships. And too bad it got people turned off and turned out. Too bad that it was done in a way that was harsh and cruel. I got my results. And for many organizations, that has been the way of the past. It cannot be the way of the future. It cannot. It cannot. We have to stop that behavior. How you get the results is as important as getting the results. A lack of meaningful work, wasting people's time in meetings and interactions, wasting people's time, not seeing people for who they are, and therefore be able to connect with them and enable them and empower them based on the strengths and the qualities and the characteristics that they bring to the table. So not seeing people for who they are is critical. Valuing people for who they are. And incremental change. Think, oh, we'll just do this little thing here and this little thing there and we'll be okay. Or we'll put a Band-Aid on this or a Band-Aid on that and that will be okay. And Band-Aids are nice, but Band-Aids don't always heal. So we got challenges for us in this current state that we got to move from. And then there are things that are helping us move forward and move forward at an accelerated pace. So the pandemic is one of those things that gives us a chance to do a reset. New constructs, new ways of looking at things. I'm sure you, like others, are inventing and thinking about new ways of interacting, new ways of bringing about organization change, community change, individual, personal change. So we have an opportunity to try some new things because we're in a new reality. Technology will help us. Technology has pluses and has minuses. And we always have to be aware of both of those. But if we can use technology for good, that will accelerate some things and assist some things. Robotics will be big as we go forward, and it's an opportunity. It's also a challenge. Again, everything has the good and the bad in the process. Artificial intelligence is going to really accelerate and assist us in our thinking and being able to problem solve, but it can be used for bad and for harm. It can be used for watching the citizens of a country and recording every move, every statement, and deciding what's good or what's bad. So there's some things that it can be very ugly about. How do we make it work for us and not against us? Changing dynamics will be a force for change. The old world, the old look is gone. It's already happened. It's gone. How do we acknowledge that and know that that new mix of the human species is going to be an advantage to us, not a disadvantage to us? And as you all know, and we know, inclusion is an opportunity and a critical part. Diversity is what we are and who we are. And for us, all of those factors around change allows us an opportunity for transformation and transform to a new reality, transform to a new normal, transform to a world where we are much better as human beings than we have ever been, and significantly better as we interact human to human, group to group.
You know, I was thinking about, in many ways, our organizations are totally unfrozen, you know, and there's so many unknowns, and that really creates so many opportunities. The robotics thing, I had one quick little story to tell about that. In DC, where I live in Washington, DC, one of the things a few of the restaurants have started using is robots to deliver food to people's homes because of the social distancing and the no contact. So one of the things we see in this time of this new normal is people are creatively using some of the tools that are there and accelerating that, which is really about your notion about transformation, Fred. So it's interesting to watch how some of these things had been there. They've been experimenting with them. I mean, who ever thought that we would see, I mean, we're still in process here, a vaccine so quickly. People have been talking, it's going to take 10, 20 years. Now they're saying maybe 18 months, maybe 12 months. So there's so many things that have accelerated in terms of the ability to make change. And I think that's where we have to keep on looking at what's possible. I mean, organizations have to make huge changes to get people back into the workplace. And so these are things that maybe they would have never said, well, we can't do this for safety reasons. We can't do this for whatever reasons. Those reasons are going away. And now the issue is, how can we make this work? And I think that's really our opportunity to think about as change practitioners. How do we make this work? Not what can't be done. And I think the incremental change mindset has shifted dramatically. Now the question is, how quickly can we do this? How do we do it? How do we make it work? And I think that's really this opportunity that we're in this moment of transformation. So one of the things that really is important as we think about kind of this transformation, this moment of transformation, is the definition and thinking about what does inclusion mean. Now, we've used this definition for many, many years, but this is a time now where I think inclusion is even more important than ever, because it's what holds us together. It's kind of the thread of what creates the whole. So for us, our definition of inclusion has three parts. One is that people have a sense of belonging, and that's more than just I work here. There's that fundamental sense of I feel connected to this place. I'm proud to work at this place. I might wear the hats, or I might carry the mugs, or I might whatever, but there's a sense I belong here. I feel at home. The second element is that I feel respected, valued, and seen for who I am as an individual. And I think, as Fred talked about before, some of the ways in which in the current state people don't feel seen, don't feel valued, don't feel heard, we need to change that dramatically. And this is where our differences come into play, because feeling respected, valued, and seen for who we are may be quite different depending on my identity. What it means for me as a white woman may be different than Fred as an African-American man, particularly now in this pandemic. You know, some of the folks who I know who lived alone during the stay at home have had a very different isolating experience than some of the friends that I have who have family that they live with. So understanding what it means to feel respected, valued, and seen as an individual becomes essential. And we need to have the discussions about what do you need to feel respected, valued, and seen. And then lastly, and I think this is where culture change comes in, there's a level of supportive energy and commitment from leaders, colleagues, and others, partners, whomever, that, in other words, that we get supportive energy so that we can not only individually, but collectively do our best work. And I think this is where leaders, managers, colleagues, peers have to go from judging one another to joining each other, that we really need to provide that supportive energy to one another to enable us to do our best work, and to ask, what do you need to really be able to do your best work? So for us, one of the keys about inclusion is that it eliminates waste. If you and I really trust each other, if I really join you, I'm not going to second guess you. I'm going to give you the benefit of the doubt. I'm going to really ask you, how can I help, instead of why are you asking me for that data? And I think this notion of inclusion, to really create a workplace where people feel that sense of connection, of being seen, of supportive energy, we think now is more important than ever. So as we're talking about inclusion, I think one of the big questions for us, and in this new pandemic and in this new reality, is what are our roles as OD practitioners? We have identified kind of 8 big things that we think really going to make a difference, and actions that we need to be taking at this moment. So Fred and I are going to share it and go back and forth and talk a little bit about some of these. But we hope that they're helpful for you as you think about how can you intervene in this moment when we're in such potential for change.
So facilitating interactions to ensure recognition of the fragility of this moment on all levels of systems. We all know how fragile we feel, how much we feel like we're in transition, how much our organizations are in transition. We're in a very fragile time. And it's an opportunity time. When I'm feeling confused, unclear, challenged, threatened, is an opportunity for me to be different on the other side of that. So there's an incredible opportunity now. And when we talk about levels of system, we talk about on the individual level, we're talking about pairs, we're talking about the group level, we're talking about the system organizational level. All 4 levels of system are being impacted for where we are now. And all 4 levels of system need to be changed as we move to a new reality. And as OD practitioners, we may work on one of those levels or two of those levels, or all four of those levels. We're honored in our consulting practice that we're often working on a system and organization level, the large system level, and that gives us the opportunity to really bring about some real organizational and cultural change. It's an honor and privilege to do that with leaders. So that's number one.
As you say that, Fred, I think really being able to speak to and give voice to the fragility is important, because I think none of us like to talk about being vulnerable. And I think that the reality of making it legitimate to speak to vulnerability, I think is so important. Because in many ways, I think we want to push that away. We just want to keep on moving. It's like watching in the United States, at least, when people want to get back to the way it was, and thousands of people going swimming or going to a beach, instead of really acknowledging the fragility that people are experiencing. I think it also speaks to the second one is inclusion, equity, and diversity must stay or be put on the table. And so for those organizations that have been working on this, we have to be more vigilant. It's not a time to say, oh, we can't address those issues because we've got other things to deal with. We've got to get back to new working. These issues become even more important. And I think whether it's employee resource groups, if organizations have them, having a chance to come together, new resource groups being formed to talk about the impact of the pandemic on people's lives, and being aware of privilege. In many ways, I think we talked in our last video about how what was used to be called essential workers is now less essential. The people who could work remotely were often white-collar workers who worked in the office. And those frontline workers who might not have been seen or heard or valued have been essential in having to be at work. The people who are working in grocery stores, the people who are we work in one of our clients right now is a plant, and it's a food company. And their frontline workers have been working through this whole thing. They have not been able to be working from home. They are essential. Are we treating them essential? Are they getting bonused for coming in every day and risking their lives? Are they being treated with PPE? Are they being tested? So in many ways, we have to reassess who's essential and who's non-essential in our workforce. And, the privilege is those of us who could work at home and work remotely really are the privileged. And we have to really acknowledge and recognize that our reality for those of us who've been working remotely or working on Zoom is not the same of all those many people who have been risking their lives every day. So we have to address and understand what's fairness, what's equity, and cheering people is great. What we've done in many countries for nursing professionals and doctors, et cetera, people who are in the front lines in our hospitals, but that doesn't necessarily really acknowledge the full depth of what they've risked every day. And so I think we really have to have a serious conversation in every organization about who's been on the front lines, how has the pandemic impacted people, what does that look like, and to really have to really look at this in a new light. We also need to make sure, as we talked about inclusion, that people feel valued, supported, and safe. And safety is really on all levels. So everything from, we've been having conversations in our own office about what is going to be for people to come back to the office. If you can't put your air conditioning on because we're worried about particles being in the air, safety has a new meaning. So we want to make sure people are physically safe, emotionally safe, and feel safe enough to speak up and to really have that interaction safety or psychological safety. And we talk about as interaction safety so that they can really be able to bring their voice and talk about what they need and how they feel. So those things become really, really important, and they can't be a sideline. They have to be front and center.
Facilitating interactions to ensure connection. Keep the water cooler conversations alive. Just talking about connection. People, as we've gone through this pandemic, have been talking about social distance. We don't need social distance. We need physical distance. Physically, we need to be apart. And we need to do that so that we can be safe and show people that we're trying to be safe. Social distance, we need closeness. We need interaction. We need building trust and support. We need hearing. We need listening. We need people engaging with one another. So yes, physical distance is important, but can't confuse that with distancing ourselves from other human beings and making our connection less strong with people. The water cooler is critical. I've always been an advocate of water coolers, not physical water coolers, but psychological and water coolers, social water coolers, working together, thinking together, meeting together, interacting water coolers. And so that metaphor of a water cooler is a place where people can casually, accidentally come together and be able to share their thinking. And so this one thing about Zoom or whatever other device people are using, it makes things much more rigid and tight and structured and organized. And yet we know creativity, innovation, all comes from spontaneity. And so we're going to have to, as we move forward, as OD practitioners, helping organizations and communities be better, create spontaneity again, and create ways in which people can accidentally bump into each other, because often in those accidents is when great things happen. Not all structured, planned, and with a lot of PowerPoints and 29-page documents. So let's get the water cooler, that metaphoric water cooler. Maybe we should put a little water cooler on our icons on our computers. Acknowledging the whole person is critical. And especially now when people are feeling challenged and in struggle, I want to be acknowledged for all of who I am. I always joke to our clients, but it's not fully a joke. Nobody wants to just be an order giver or order taker. Nobody wants to see my job as I go to work and people give me orders all day. I go to work and people tell me things to do. They never ask who I am. They never ask how I am. They never ask what I need. All they say is, Fred, do this. Fred, do this. Did you do that? Where is that? Nobody wants to be an order taker. Everybody wants to be a human being. And in that being a human being, I want to be known. I want to be seen. And at the same time, yes, I want to partner with you to accomplish things. But I don't want to be just somebody that you pass something to. So acknowledging the whole person, acknowledging me, the more organizations want our thinking and want our best thinking, want us to be creative and innovative, the more they need to acknowledge me as a whole person. My whole personness comes when I'm being creative and innovative and when I'm laughing and when I'm interacting with people. But if you want my brilliance, you have to take all of me. You can't just say, Fred, be brilliant, but leave your relationships outside. Leave your thoughts about family outside. Leave your thought about who you want to be in the world outside. No, you get it all or you'll never get the best of me.
I mean, I think it underscores really leaders' jobs right now, Fred, which is we need to have leaders really encourage people to bring their voice and really listen to them. And I think it has to be more than just around the work and the task, but it has to be right now their willingness to lean into that discomfort, to really ask people, how are you doing? To really understand, as we've been away, if we're coming back into the workplace or one-on-one, how are you really doing during this pandemic? How has it impacted you? How has it impacted your family? How has it impacted your system? And I think that often, leaders, are concerned about that. It's like the boundary about too much personal information. But I think right now you have to err on the side of that because people's lives we're more than workers. We are whole human beings, as you just said. And I think as a manager and as a leader, I got to get comfortable leaning into that discomfort of having those conversations. And it's only when people feel free that they can be vulnerable that they'll be able to really bring themselves fully to the workplace as well. And, as you said, and I think it was maybe in the other video, we talked about how, if somebody's working remotely and their kids are there and they're trying to manage the kids and the dog, and there's two people who are on Zoom and all that. We've had people who have had to sit in their bedrooms all day long because they're somebody else in terms of the way the house is structured. They don't have another room to be in. And so, think about the stress. Are we even asking people, how are you managing the stress? Where are you able to have these conversations from? Or if you're having to come into work every day, do you have transportation? Or are you getting on a bus or having to get on the subway or whatever to be able to get into work every day? So we need to ask those questions and go deeper into what people are experiencing to be able to give them support and to understand how their work is being impacted by all of this, let alone being able to where you want to get to, where we want to get to is that creative side, that innovative side. So I think leaders' job is really encouraging people to bring their voice and to really, really listen as an ally, really, really listen to what they have to say.
Yes, Judith, thank you. I love what you said. Absolutely, totally. So number 7, team members co-create new ground rules for interaction. We need new ground rules. In many organizations, we've lost the old ground rules even. People have just gone, sit down, do a task, and nobody knows what the ground rules are for that meeting or that interaction or that community session. And so we got to go back to the basics. As OD practitioners, the basics were, let's establish some ground rules before we interact. All of a sudden, we got into let's interact. And then we want to know why the results weren't where they needed to be. We want to know why people felt awkward in the process. Why people felt like, I don't know how to act or be a good member of this group. Because we haven't reinforced or established or reestablished ground rules. So I'm back to basics. What are the ground rules? How are we going to operate? Let's make sure everybody's got the understanding of where we're going, how we're going to get there, but mainly what we're going to do, how we're going to interact, how we're going to be with one another in this process. So team members co-create new ground rules for interactions.
I think the last one is really where we have the opportunity for big change. And in many ways, managers have had to really, those managers who are really, really good, those leaders who are really, really good, have been able to lead and manage through this crisis, be flexible, and inspire people. And I think for many managers and leaders, there's some who have been fearful, mistrustful. I think we need to really do a reassessment of managers and capabilities, because we know in the future they're going to need to be able to be more flexible, to continue to be able to inspire people, to be able to adjust quickly in this new normal, which is going to be there with us for the next however many years, 10, 20 decades, whatever. We know that people who went through the influenza in the 1900s were dramatically changed, and went through the Depression were dramatically changed. We have the same situation happening now. So what does it mean to be a manager? And not only that ability to inspire people and be flexible, but also their ability to lead, manage, and coach a diverse workforce, and to really create that inclusive environment. So I think we have an opportunity to really say there's a new set of competencies that are needed in this new world. We have a new set of competencies and accountabilities of how it means to lead and how it means to manage. And I think that's one of the huge changes that we can really expect and hold people accountable for and really reinforce. And to me, this is where our moment of opportunity is. As Fred said before, it can't be incremental change, and many organizations have been trying to bump along to bring some of these changes into place. We have an opportunity now to change big. And I think that for us is where we should be putting a lot of our focus in, is how do we recreate this new workforce? How do we recreate this new way of being? How do we create this place of joining and partnership so that we can do our best work together? So I know we're going to go to our summary, Fred, but any last words that you want to have before I kind of do a summing it up?
I just want to thank everybody for joining us for this video. But more important than that, thank you for being change agents in the world and helping us to be a better place for all. Greatly appreciate it.
So thank you, Fred. I mean, we have an opportunity for transformation. There's no question about it. We've got to be big. We've got to go big. And we can do this. And we need each other. I think one of the things is an OD community, we need to be talking with one another. We need to be working together. We need to be sharing what we're doing so we can accelerate that change. And fundamentally, let's not waste this crisis. It doesn't come very often in our lifetimes. We may never see it again. We have this moment of change and an opportunity to do that. And we wish everybody the best, and stay healthy, stay safe, and keep on making change. Thanks so much.
On behalf of everybody, may I say a big thank you to you, Judith and Fred, for sharing your thoughts and insights on this topic of opportunity for transformation. I believe the wisdoms and the guidance you have talked about is very much needed by our OD community. So I invite all our OD practitioners to embrace the role and opportunity that are outlined by Judith and Fred. We hope all of you will find ways to discuss this video with your friends and colleagues. And if you'd like to contact Judith and Fred to continue this conversation, their email, along with all the information and links to relevant resources, are in the description of this video. It's an extraordinary time, and we hope and we pray for peace, love, and calmness. A big thank you again to you, Judith and Fred, for taking time to share. And I am already thinking about the 10 roles that OD practitioner can play. And your wisdom has been much appreciated. And take care.